Get Certified Together program is created by Technocofe, your free online knowledge sharing website, based out in London.
volumes with replication. Same goes for replication of buckets. You can create your S3 bucket replication for keeping the data onto the two different location. If you are creating a database, you can create two databases to make sure that data is always, that the information stored on the database is always available. You can of course decide a lot of things based on that syncing, whether you want real-time sync or whether you want it to.
If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Get Certified Together. This is episode number 27 for the whole series and episode number 12 where we will be covering CCSP topics. We have already finished domain 1. We started domain 2 topics in episode 26 onwards. And since then there been a long gap, and again I don't know how many times I have to say it, but every time you make a mistake, you need to apologize, and I apologize from my side for having a 3 weeks delay in the recording of next episode. But from my side, I have justification for that. Like I told you, I am still starting the new things, and on my personal front, I have to do a lot of other stuffs, and I was not really getting time to cover all the topics to record in a particular episode, and I really don't want to just go on there and record anything whatever I have in mind. Instead of that, I really want to read something myself before sharing the knowledge with you guys, and that's the only reason I left the recording of episode number 27 for a bit longer time. Episode number 26, if you haven't checked that out, episode number 26 is a perfect example of when you are not really in mood of doing something and then someone force you to do it. In my case, no one was forcing me, but of course for the sake of listeners, I thought I have to record something, so that's why I recorded episode number 26. And funny part is, after the whole recording, after I published the episode, just 3 days back when I was going through back with those show notes and everything, I realized that the settings for that particular day's episode which I selected was not perfect, and that's why the audio was not good. The content which I was sharing was okay, but I was not able to explain few things as good as I was supposed to do, and that's why I thought of giving a good break before restarting everything and before continuing our journey for this whole series and continuing the information which I am supposed to share with you guys. So that's why I let myself stand back a little and just wait for things to just get sorted out. And finally I can say that now I am in much better position to take out some time and spend something on my self-learning as well as recording the things for this series. So series is not dead. If you are thinking, if those who are listening regularly, if you are wondering whether there are no more episodes, whether series will be continuing or not, I'm still very much excited about completing this whole CCSP syllabus and of course getting myself certified as well. It will go on, and as we move on we will try to add in more and more information inside this journey itself, and so you can have a good idea about the things which are happening these days in terms of cloud, in terms of cloud security. On my personal front, like I told you that I am working more towards as a cloud infra engineer these days and building new stuff on AWS, on Azure, and it is really exciting. These days I am working towards understanding more towards IAM roles provided by AWS. So if you want to get an idea about it, I can give you a hint. IAM roles is when you want someone to have a cap temporarily to do some tasks. So if for example, if I am an engineer, I am not supposed to do particular task as part of the policies which I am assigned to my job role. Temporarily I can be assigned to a different role using AWS roles, so that I can perform maybe admin task for a particular period of time, and after that period of time expires, I will be back to my old role. That's the whole crux of using IAM roles, and one of our use case is I have to use it for our customer so that they can assume the role temporarily and work on the system which we are creating for them. And once that role expire, it will be back to us and we will be admins back again. So that's a good use case, and I was completely busy in setting up everything related to this, and finally I have set up my CloudFormation templates, and I have set up my base state using VPCs and subnets with Terraform. So I have sorted out most of the things, and finally I thought, okay, now it's good time to head back to the cloud security journey, because cloud security is a must to have more and more. Earlier I was just in assumption, I was just looking towards from the security perspective that everything is moving towards cloud, people are working towards cloud, and security is a big concern these days. So cloud security must be a big topic and something good to have in future if you know about cloud security. Now more and more, when I am really doing everything hands-on myself, cloud-based deployment and cloud infra working, when I'm back in those workspaces, I realize that we are actually on the right track. Every day we face challenges related to cloud security. Every day, every deployment which I am doing, every infra which I am creating, first and foremost question comes from the perspective of cloud security. Whether the thing which I am creating on top of AWS, will it be secure? What kind of security strategies I am putting in place? What kind of security groups I am creating for this particular instance? How people will be accessing it in the future? How we can limit the users who can access the whole infrastructure? Like I told you, we are on the right track, and cloud security is must to have. And beside controlling the access to system, another key component is information. And information is stored how? In the form of data. That is the subtopic which we are covering as part of domain 2 in CCSP. And data lifecycle, security of data is a must to have thing. You have to ensure that the data which you are storing on top of the cloud is secure. If you are storing it for a particular customer or someone else, then you have to make sure that their data is secure in your infrastructure. If you have your own organizational data, you are keeping it on the cloud, then you have to make sure that your organization data is in the safe place, is always secure, must be encrypted. If someone is accessing that information, then that access at first place should be via some authentication, multi-factors should be involved. And once anyone is able to access the information, how they are moving it from one place to another place, that information must be encrypted using the latest algorithm, not the one which are already hacked upon or the one which are already proven that they are no more secure. And that brought us to the topic of secure data lifecycle. Remember the 6 phases of data lifecycle, which was creation of data, storing it, using it, sharing it if it's required, archiving it when it's no more in use, and finally destroying it when you want to completely get rid of the information. So those 6 phases of the data life cycle was one of the topic which we covered in the episode number 26. Beside that, we covered about the location of the information. Where is your data stored? And when you are storing it on the cloud, it becomes ever important, because now you have data center all across the world. If you have your organization don't want to, because of compliance, because of local regulation, they don't want your data their users or customers data to go outside of that particular region, particular country, then you have to make sure that you get an agreement with your cloud architect team or your security design team to ensure that your data never go out of the country, it never go out of that particular region in terms of cloud. So location of the data also we covered in episode number 26. So those are the two subtopics which we covered as part of episode number 26. And now let us move on to episode number 27. Before we move to episode number 27, remember, time for big break. All right, so let's catch up after this advertisement break. Alright, welcome back, and now we are covering remaining subtopics of domain 2 of CCSP series. And today what I'll be starting with is data storage type. Now just think, whenever I say that I am uploading some information on the cloud, or I am just putting in some information, I am transferring my organizational data onto the cloud, somewhere it will be stored, right? From cloud users perspective, now you are simply having a nice GUI where you are just doing click next. I want 10 GB, I want 1 TB, I want this particular type of block storage, and boom, you have a storage with you. But ultimately that storage is still physical. It is somewhere onto the data center of AWS or onto the data center of Azure. So there are really still physical hard drive, physical hard disk which are put in place by your cloud service provider. So storage is still existent. So you as a user should have a good idea about different type of storage. What are different type of storages which you have to use? Remember, you are using it, you are not setting everything up. So there is no need to go in detail related to like how you can set up a storage area network, or whether it is a NAS or SAN, or what kind of network is put in place so that your whole cluster of disks are connected together, what kind of SAN controllers you are using. There is no need to worry about everything, those hardcore data center concept. Now you have to worry about the kind of storage which is been there. If you are putting in some information, how it is stored, what kind of mechanism your cloud service provider will be using it to store it, whether they will be putting it in type of like a block storage, in type they will break down the whole information in chunks of block and then store them, or they will be putting it on top of kind of like a object storage, putting it whole as a file, whether they will be using HDDs, hard disk drive, or SSDs. Everything you need to know from the perspective of users, what kind of information when you're storing data, how it is stored. And that brings us to the topic of a different type of data storage type. So, and when we talk about data storage type, putting information onto the hard disk or onto the SSDs, we have to think that we are only discussing about data at rest, because when you're putting in information, when you're storing you're storing your data, then that scenario is actually data at rest. So what kind of different ways you can store your data at rest? You can store it on tape drives, you can store it on hard disk drives, you can store it on SSDs, which can be available to you in form of NAS or SAN. But as a cloud user, you are completely unaware, because that is something cloud is providing to you, cloud service provider is providing it to you. But kind of disk which you will be choosing, that comes as an option for you as an end user. And you have to make sure that based on the use case which you have, based on the requirement of application which you are deploying on top of cloud, if it's requiring, it should be needing SSDs or it can work with HDDs. If there is some information which is no more in use, whether you should keep storing that data onto SSDs or you can move it to a separate archive storage, which again can be provided by your cloud service provider. So all these different type of ways in which you can store the data onto the cloud comes as part of cloud storage or cloud data storage understanding. And you should know different type of data storage type, and that's what they are. So on a broader level, we have two type of cloud storages: object storage and block storage. Now object storage, by name itself, it's suggesting that you're storing an object, you're storing your file as an object as a whole. So if I have a particular document, when I will store it on an object storage, it will be stored as a full document. Your full document will be stored, kept like an entry onto the backend storage servers as a whole file. It won't be broken down into bits and then stored as a block. It will be stored as a whole file itself. And whenever someone want to retrieve it, they have to simply provide the whole path of the file, and that file will be available to the end user again. It's more like you bought something from anywhere and you want to keep that thing into your house. You will keep the whole thing there as it is. If you bought a fridge, if you brought a table from IKEA, which is already assembled, you want to keep that table as it is, you just bring in that table and store it as it is into your house. So it's there as a whole object. So that's what object storage is. In case of block storage, we have completely different scenarios where your table which you bought from IKEA, if you want to store, you have to first remove all the parts. You have to disassemble it. And disassemble, is it a word? I'm not sure. So you have to remove all the parts and you have to store it one by one in form of blocks. That's another way of storing the information. If someone want to retrieve that information, they have to re-put everything, they have to reassemble all the blocks, and then your whole table will be back again, and then that table will be given to you. So your data will be broken down into the chunks of blocks, and if you want to retrieve it, your storage software, whichever storage software which your cloud service provider is using in backend, that storage software will ensure that all the blocks are combined back in the form of the information which was stored, and then that information will be passed over back to the user. So that's the whole idea behind object storage and block storage. Funny trivia which I want to share with you guys related to block and object storage was, I was rejected from one of the interview in my initial cloud computing days because I was not able to particularly answer this question, difference between object and block storage. And funny part is, my answer was, well, in object storage you store any information in form of object, in block storage you store any information in form of block, which is okay but not worth to crack an interview. But from cloud security perspective, or from a beginner's perspective, it is the crux actually. In object storage, you are putting in all information as it is. In block storage, you are breaking it down into the blocks and then putting that blocks into your backend storage drives. And once someone want to retrieve that information, those blocks will be recombined to form the information again. So that's the whole crux, but I was not able to crack the interview based on simply this explanation. For sure, just to have an understanding, this much information is as good. Now, one more thing to add here. Object and block storages and what kind of information you want to store, this everything comes under the part of infra as a service. So when you have using a cloud service provider's infra as a service capability, and you want to decide what kind of storages you can use, you want to create the block storage volumes, you can fine tune little nitty gritties, like it should be having SSDs, or I am okay with having HDDs, what kind of storage volume I'll be using, whether I need 1 TB or 2 TB. You can determine everything, whether you want to use S3 storage for object storage or you want to use EBS for block storage. Everything you can control by yourself. So these broad categories which I discussed you about comes largely under the discussion when someone want to know about how information or how data is stored in case of infra as a service. In case of platform as a service and software as a service, things are little different. Now, if you recall, platform as a service and software as a service actually takes control out from your hand to set up the infrastructure and put everything in the control of cloud service provider's hand. So you cannot decide what kind of storages you want to use. You cannot even decide what kind of how much volume your storage should be having, or whether it should be having HDDs, SSDs, how you want to access that information. You cannot decide anything. Everything will be provided to you as a capability from your cloud service provider. So in case of platform as a service and software as a service, we move from deciding or pondering on whether we should be using blocks, whether we should be using HDDs or SSDs. We stop concerning about all these detailed stuff and we get more concerned towards how we are storing the information, whether we will be able to upload it as a file, whether we are creating a database which ultimately will be having the information which we want to store, what kind of database I should be using, whether I should be using relational or non-relational database, or the file which I am uploading, whether that file will be stored for this particular days or this particular period of time. After that, it will be not automatically deleted by my cloud service provider, or I can keep it for a longer duration, for which of course I have to pay more. So in case of PaaS and SaaS, things become more generic, things become more towards the end user perspective, how your day-to-day experience with the data storage look like. It's now you are no more concerned about setting up those volume or setting up those storage yourself. You're more concerned about how you are accessing your information, how you can download and upload your information, what kind of application you are running on top of that storage, which ultimately will be storing the information which you want to store. So it's more generic stuff, but of course you as a user, or you as a cloud security architect, must be aware of this part as well. It is still stored somewhere on the physical drive. So even though if you are a SaaS user or PaaS user, you must know, or you can raise the questions to your cloud service provider to get more information, if they are okay to provide you how you are storing my information in the backend, what kind of storage you are using, or where this information will be stored when I am uploading some file or I am uploading some data onto your portal. So you as a cloud user can ask those questions. Or if you are putting your organization data on a SaaS application provided by a cloud service provider on behalf of your organization, you as a cloud security architect, or you as a cloud architect, can ask question to the cloud service provider. Okay, you are giving me this SaaS application. I know I'm not setting up anything, but still I want answer for the location of my information, where you will be holding it, what kind of storage type you are using in backend, what kind of disk drives you will be using in backend. Those kind of information you should be able to get from your CSP, and you can raise to them whenever you want that information. Storage is already sorted out. We have put our information, we have put our data is there. We know what kind of mechanism my cloud service provider is using. If I am using infra as a service, then I myself can create those mechanisms to make sure that my data is uploaded there and my data is stored. My data is always there for use, but there are always threats, and that's what we are covering as part of cloud security. Threats to anything which you are putting on cloud. You are creating your virtual machines on the cloud, what kind of threats they have. You are putting you are creating some database onto the cloud, what kind of threats it might have. You are creating a network onto the cloud, what kind of threats it might have. Same goes for data as well. If you are creating some storage onto the cloud, what kind of threats that data storage might be having, which attacker can come in and exploit those vulnerabilities, or exploit some issues, gaps which you left open, and someone can hack into your information, hack into your data. So threats to storage is key topic in terms of cloud security and cloud security certification exam as well. And it's not really different from the way we were discussing security so far, both in CompTIA and CCSP. It's again revolving around CIA triad. So you need to make sure confidentiality, integrity, and availability of your data. If you are putting your data onto the cloud, if you are creating a storage for keeping the information onto the cloud, ensure that data is confidential. How are you going to ensure it? Using proper access control. Ensure that that data always have integrity maintained. So how are you going to ensure it? Using hashing mechanism onto the storage which you created. And availability, how you can ensure it? By keeping maybe 2 blocks of volume. If you are creating EBS volume for a particular virtual machine, make sure that you create 2 EBS volumes with replication. Same goes for replication of buckets. You can create your S3 bucket replication for keeping the data onto the 2 different location. If you are creating a database, you can create 2 databases to make sure that data is always, that the information stored on the database is always available. You can of course decide a lot of things based on that syncing, whether you want real-time sync, or whether you want whether you are okay with an inconsistent syncing, which is a completely different topic, which comes in under the system design. So there is a CAP theorem: consistency, availability, and partition, if I'm not wrong. So CAP theorem is used to ensure that your data which you are storing, your database which you are creating, are always available. And you have to make sure that you consider all these CIA aspects whenever you're trying to understand about threats to your storage as well. And of course, when we are talking about CCSP, we cannot rely on those simple CompTIA topic of CIA threats, related threats only. We have additional threats as well. And in case of storage type, we have 2 more things which I want to share with you when we are discussing about threats to your storage. One is data compliance restriction, which is to make sure that your data is always in a particular region. That comes under location, if you recall, which we covered last time, that way we are storing your information. If you are storing it somewhere, then it should be complying to the local regulation. And if due to some regulatories compliance, you want to make sure that your data is always inside a particular region, then you have to make sure that the storage which you are creating is covering this aspect as well, is ensuring that your data is not leaving the country. So you have to create your storage type accordingly, and that's one of the threat. If your data is not meeting the compliance, if your data which you are putting, if the storage which you are creating onto the cloud is not meeting the compliance guidelines, one of the biggest threat, I know it doesn't sound like as fancy as someone trying to hack in, but in terms of penalties, in terms of payment, and in terms of your branding, your imaging, if your data is outside the country against the regulatory requirement, then of course it will ruin your company's or your organization's image. So that's one of the biggest threat. And another thing is data erasure. Now, when we are putting everything into the on-prem, we have control onto the end-to-end life cycle. So end-to-end life cycle means creating, storing, how we are accessing that information, and of course in the end how we are deleting everything, how we are making sure that data is erased completely. Even though in case of on-prem, even though if you have deleted something, you are still holding those tape drives, you are still holding those disk drive with you into your on-prem, and if data is not completely erased, still it's lying around as in a box in your on-prem data center. No one bothers about it. But in case of cloud, it's not as simple as that. Once your data is deleted, you have to understand what kind of erasure mechanism your cloud service provider is giving you to make sure that that data is completely wiped off. And data erasure is one of the key threat, because you are not owner of the data disks now, you are not owner of the storage disk drives now. You are the owner only about creating those, having those blocks available to you and putting information there. Once you deleted that information from those blocks, how your CSP is making sure that information is wiped off completely. That is one of the key threat, and data erasure is now big discussing topic these days related to threats to storage types. Alright, that's all for today's episode. I wanted to cover DLP today as well, data loss prevention, which is one of the strategies for data security or storage security. But I don't think we have time today, because I was doing it after good whole 2-3 weeks, and I had a lot of information I wanted to share with you guys. So probably next week I will try to I was earlier thinking of releasing another episode this week, but it's okay, we can have some time, and I'll come back to you guys next week with another episode, and we will cover the security strategies for the data security. One of the key thing is DLP, or data loss prevention. I'm sure if you are in the same field in terms of cloud computing, then you have heard about this DLP a lot. So we will cover that as part of next topic. Rest all, winter is finally over. Seems like spring is here, and now finally we can see sunny, good sunshine in the London. I am planning to have a trip to Cambridge this weekend with whole family, and we will be driving all the way. Cambridge is a nice city. I have been there for now a couple of days now, and it seems like it's a good place to live. And if all things goes well, then probably we'll be thinking over to just shift from London to Cambridge, because it's way more peaceful and it's way more cleaner, which I have heard from so many people. But of course we will be going there and checking it ourselves. But how it goes, and what's my observation of the new city, I will share with you guys in the next episode about Cambridge. And yeah, one more thing, if you guys have any questions or any query related to how to get job in UK, or how you can get your visa processing in UK if you are new here, or if you are planning to make a move here, then you can contact me anytime, because I am here for 8 months, and trust me, in that 8 months I have applied for visa 2 times, and because of course my new organization have to reapply for visa. So I have been to this whole process for 2 times now, and I am quite well versed about everything. If you guys have any questions related to that visa processing, or anything related to what things you have to make sure when you are moving in from any country to United Kingdom, then just check with me. I can share a hell lot of things, hell lot of mistakes which I did, and which I'll make sure that no one else will do if someone approach me, because trust me, it's not an easy process, and it have a lot of headache, and finally I'm over with it. I have everything sorted out, so now I know what kind of mistakes I was doing, and of course I'll be happy to share with you guys as well. If you have anything, you can approach me. I won't be sharing directly in the podcast because otherwise maybe it's not relevant for everyone who is listening it, and I don't want to barge in with the information. But of course I'll share with you guys how Cambridge looks like, because that for sure will be exciting for all of us who have not been there, and if you are there, then you can tell me whether I'm telling something wrong or some incorrect thing. All right, see you in the next episode. Goodbye and good luck.
Thank you for listening to Get Certified Together. If you loved our content, then please like and subscribe from your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss the notification for our next episodes and announcements.
If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.